Hello and welcome. I'm Emma Turton and I'm a medical intuitive. This week I've been guided to speak about a really big topic that affects every single one of us in this whole world at some point in our lives, whether it's directly or whether it is through somebody that we love and supporting them through their journey, and that is cancer. So cancer is something that affects each and every one of us at some point in our lives, and I'm betting that most of you, if not all of you, have had an experience of cancer either directly yourself or through somebody you love already at this point in your life. So it is something that is very widely misunderstood, I feel, by the majority of people, and it is something that is greatly feared. It is also a condition that it presents in so many different ways. So there's a lot of information in the internet about it. There are a lot of different names that can be quite confusing. And I want to speak directly to that today as well. I want to try and lay this out as simply as I can. So I'm going to do my best today. So what is cancer, first of all? And I love approaching things from the science perspective first, because that's, of course, my background. And that is really where, we've done so much work in the medical field that has really dug into what creates disease and working on trying to cure and treat diseases as well. So often that gets pushed aside in this intuitive world. Often that medical information and science and research gets pushed aside to focus more on the spiritual aspects. And I don't see that they should be separate. There is nothing that is not spiritual, including science. Science is inherently spiritual. So I want to speak about that part of it first. So I'm going to talk about cancer and what is cancer, first of all. So what happens is that we have normal cells throughout our body, many different kinds of cells. They're the tiniest little, almost like an organism, a little bit like a miniature human, really, when you break it down. But I won't talk about the cells in their great detail right now. But they are very clever. In the middle of the cells is the genetic material that tells them exactly how to reproduce and what their function is in the body. And so what can happen is with these normal cells, with a stimulus acting on these cells, so some sort of external factor, and that doesn't necessarily mean outside the body, but it means something is acting on the cells to stimulate them in a specific way. It causes that genetic material to mutate, change. And then for whatever reason, those cells then reproduce, so they multiply with that defect, instead of it being picked up by the immune system. So we have these defects happening all over our body all the time. We have this potential, this precursor for cancer happening at all times in our body in all different ways, but our normal healthy immune system is picking it up. So we could say that we have cancer that's constantly being generated, but it's constantly being picked up by our immune system. It's trained to pick up these abnormalities, these irregular genetic codes. It's trained to find that stuff. It's designed beautifully to actually find them and to pull them apart, repurpose the cells and make them into something that we can use, because we can't use these cells that are not like all the others. So these cells replicate and they form, and what they do is they replicate irregularly, they multiply, and they form what's called a neoplasm or a tumor. Neoplasm just means a new growth. They form some sort of a new growth in the body. And that new growth can be either benign or malignant. And these are words I know that you've probably heard, but they're often used inappropriately. So I want to try and use them in the correct way. And we often use cancer to describe only malignant cancer or benign cancer. We might use cancer, but cancer is actually not the best word, and it's not one that your doctor will generally use unless they're trying to explain something to you that you might understand in your words. It's generally a layperson's term for a carcinoma. So what we are looking at there with a benign neoplasm or a benign growth or tumour is that it's well defined, it's really localised, it's not spreading into surrounding tissue. It might cause a bit of compression if it gets big, but it generally isn't spreading. And so it can be removed and it doesn't cause us a huge drama. So it's generally well survivable, depending on where it appears in the body, of course. The difference with malignant is that it spreads, it can reach out. And the reason that the word cancer is used often around around malignant tumours is that cancer comes from the Latin word meaning crab, meaning it grabs onto things with its pincers and destroys them. That's where the word comes from. So it's seen as a very destructive force. And from that point, that malignant tumour point, we can form what's called a metastasis, which is a few of those cells break off, move to somewhere else in the body and become a tumour there, somewhere else, totally different. And that's what's called a secondary tumour or a secondary malignant metastasis. So that's that metastatic cancer that you may have heard of. So that's the scientific side of that. And I think it's important because I think the words are often used wrongly, and we're very afraid to use these scientific words because we have so much fear in our culture, in our society around cancer, because it's taken people we love. And so there's a good reason for that fear. So, but does it need to be there? And I don't think it does. And I don't think it helps us at all. And the amount of posts I've seen on Facebook about F cancer and I hate cancer and cancer sucks balls, all that stuff, I don't agree with any of that, because cancer is here to bring us an offering in the same way any other health crisis is. So cancer is just our body, our cells that are needing some support. Our body has within it the ability to recognize, take apart and repurpose the cells that have become metastatic cancer or become malignant cancer. We have that ability within our own body. So why would we hate our own body in that way? And how on earth can that help us heal? It can't. If we are directing that anger, that resentment, that absolute loathing towards part of our own body, particularly if we are struggling with cancer right now, and some of you may well be, and I absolutely honour your journey there. I have so much respect for what you are going through right now, because it is a very difficult journey. It brings up every fear we have, and for our loved ones as well, every fear they have. But that is not going to heal us. Focusing on the anger, the resentment, and living in the fear does not help us to redirect those cells and heal them. And I encourage you to absolutely start to explore what comes up for you. Don't stifle it. Don't direct it at yourself. Don't direct it out at the world in anger. Start to look to see where you have actually stored some of these real deep feelings and the fears in particular that come up, the fear of losing our children, the fear of leaving a loved one alone, the fear of leaving our children alone, the fear of dying before we've realized our dreams, the fear of not living the life that we wish we'd always lived, the fear of going through pain and suffering, and actually explore those in a lot more depth and learn to release those in a lot more, to give yourself some freedom, because these are coming up for a reason. They've been sitting in the body and waiting. They've been eating away at you. And it's always the feelings, beliefs, and fears that eat away at us that cause that cancer. Now, cancer is multifactorial. Anyone who tells you it is purely based on beliefs and feelings or suppressed anger or anything like that is not telling you the whole truth. It is not just our feelings that cause cancer. It's also not just the sun that causes cancer. It's also not just a toxic environment that causes cancer. It's also not just a toxic diet that causes cancer. There are so many different factors, and everyone's cancer will be unique, no matter who else has also had that cancer. What applies for them will not apply for the next person that has what appears to be the same cancer. So it is multifactorial. All of those things can be contributing. They may be the stimulus that have kept those cells reproducing, those mutated cells reproducing and multiplying in the body to create that metastatic or that malignant tumor. So what is it that does damage our cells? So our cells can be damaged by our feelings. Our cells can be damaged by our beliefs. Our cells can be damaged by our fears. Our cells can absolutely be damaged by stress. That's one of the biggest factors. And that stress can be internal or external. So we may be creating that stress through our beliefs and fears. That's our internal stress. Or that stress may be coming from a job that is overwhelming for us and not lighting us up. That stress may be coming from a relationship that is unhealthy, that is not actually serving us on any highest level, that is a constant source of stress. And that may come from sacrificing ourselves within that relationship too, or within that job. That self-sacrifice is a really big part of the cell destruction in our body. Where we hold that and chew on that in our body is where we will form those cancerous cells that may become a tumour, that may not be picked up by our immune system in that place. It can also be regret around our unrealised dreams. It can be environmental stresses. Stressors are very important too, and that is where we often focus in conventional medical world. That's often where we focus. But even there in the conventional medical world, in terms of treatment options, often they're seen as woo-woo. Changing your diet can be seen as woo-woo, which I think is amazing. Food isn't woo-woo. There's nothing woo-woo about that. We all eat. It's quite scientific, and it's quite well proven that our diet really changes the way our cells reproduce. It changes our immune system, and it changes how our body survives and thrives on a daily and hourly basis. So that's it. Our toxic diet is an environmental stressor, and for every person, a toxic diet means a different thing. You need to know what is toxic for you. So what is toxic for the next person may not be toxic for me, and vice versa. But there are some things that are across the board for the human species, and that is sugar. That's toxic for all of us. That doesn't mean we can't have any. It just means we need to monitor how much we're having and perhaps try not to eat it all the time. And there are even carbohydrates as well, because carbohydrates are sugar. So anything that is a carbohydrate is immediately turned into sugar in the mouth. So that is also something to look out for, because that causes the same imbalance, the same stresses on our cells that just pure sugar does. And those carbohydrates can be different kinds of carbohydrates as well. So, you know, there's the grains, and there's potatoes, there's all different sorts of carbohydrates. So, and the toxic diet could also mean dairy if you're a person who is sensitive to dairy, but the next person may not find dairy toxic for them. So for you, it is a self-exploration into what really is toxic for you and what you need to remove from your diet. For some people, the raw vegan journey has really helped them to get through having cancer. But for some people, it hasn't. So it entirely depends on what your body needs. So you need to go on that exploration and find out what is toxic and start to remove that from your environment. But that also means toxic lifestyle, toxic habits that you might have. So drinking the wine in the evening may be your toxic habit. Having a whiskey on the weekend might be your toxic habit. Or smoking socially or regularly may be your toxic habit. So we know what our toxic issues are, but we may not be looking at the chemical toxins around our home. We may not be looking at perhaps our new mattress, or the new blinds we have, and the new carpet in our house, or whatever might be, something that might be emitting toxic fumes that you are sitting in, that are adding to that load of stress on your cells that makes them reproduce irregularly and perhaps have the potential to create that neoplastic tumor. So radiation is another part of the toxic stressors in the environment, and that radiation could come from the sun, it could come from chemical radiation, it could come from these guys, it could come from our computer, our Wi-Fi, it could come from a whole variety. So that EMF radiation can be an issue as well. And that is something to start to explore. If you are going through a cancer journey, then these are the things to start exploring and unpacking in your life. And chemical toxins are another one. So we may be finding, you know, there might be chemicals in our food. There may be more chemicals on the outside of the fruit. Maybe we're not washing our fruit, or there might be chemicals in your coffee that you might not know about, or you may be taking medication that you're unaware of that might be actually putting quite a lot of stress on your cells and making them reproduce in a different way. So going through that and having that a real close look at that, zooming in really, and having a laser focused look at your own life and seeing where you have the opportunity to start to unpack that stuff and start to really honor your immune system and allow it to support you and allow it to heal. But the biggest one that you can really look into are those beliefs and fears and stressors that eat you up, the ones that you churn over in your mind and in your belly and in your body, the ones that really do get in there, that anger towards someone that you might be holding on to, the resentment that you might be holding on to, the fear that you might be holding on to around something. And these may seem to be honorable or good. So we often, as parents, I'll speak from that perspective because I have a great understanding of that myself as a parent. We often have fears around our children and the way they live their lives and their choices, or fears around the choices they may make in the future, or fears around whether or not we've been a good parent in the past. When we churn through that and keep that in our system and keep that in our energy field. Our energy field is holding our beliefs, fears, and psychology. It's not woo-woo. It's just this bigger part of us that sits around us. Some of us see it and some of us haven't honed that skill yet. We all have the opportunity to do that. But it is something that sits there and it is anchored into our physical body. And as we keep those things there churning around and causing that damage in what is known as the energetic body, but it is really that churning on the psychology side of it, that really working over and over in our mind, what could have been said, what could have been done, how we regret things, how we wish things should have been, and how things could be different. When we churn through all of those things, that actually anchors in our physical body at a specific point relating to that particular thing that we're afraid of, or that we're worrying about, or that we're stressed or angry or fearful of. And that actually does damage at a cellular level in that place in the physical body. And that damage could be the change to the genetic material within inside the cells, which could be then replicated abnormally to create that tumor. So doing this work is huge. Having that anchored in your physical body is not a permanent thing. We can shift that very, very quickly. And it can be something that shifts within a week for you, to the point that something that was there and visible on a scan may not be the following week, with the right attitude, the right approach, and the right work. And it's not so much about healing this disease. What it's actually about is supporting the body to thrive and to do what it's built for, to do what it is here to do, to allow it to support itself, to just self-correct and self-right. Your body wants to self-correct. It does not want to be unwell. It does not want to be causing itself suffering. And it is programmed in such a way that it can self-correct given the right circumstances. So I wholeheartedly encourage you to do that. But the biggest thing is exploring what those beliefs, fears, and stresses and feelings that may be repressed or suppressed and being held and chewed on by you are. And so the way to work that out for you may be to start from, if you have a tumor in your body, if you have a cancer journey or you've had one in the past, it may be to actually start from the anatomical and work out and figure out what it is that you've been holding on to. And so how would we do that? And I'm going to talk about that now, because I think that's something that is very prescriptive in a lot of books, and I don't think that's right. I think each of us are unique. Each of our life journeys are unique, and we are not able to just look up in a book like a chart and say, I mean, I've got charts up there behind me, you can see that there, and I don't refer to them generally. I used to, and I found they weren't helpful and didn't really apply to most of my clients or myself. So they're really lovely and they're quite pretty. The only ones that really are quite good are the labels on the muscle charts and the skeletal charts, and they're really good for pointing out to people what their joints look like and where they are in their body. But the other ones, they're really too prescriptive. We are all unique. So what you need to do, and the way that I like to go in and really analyze the body, is that we look at the part of the body. So we'll look for an example. Say we're looking at the blood. That's a good one, a blood cancer. Say we're looking at something to do with the blood in the body. So whether that's the blood plasma or the red blood cells, whatever that might be. And bone marrow is quite closely linked there, because of course our blood is made in our bone marrow. So we're looking at cancer in that area. Then we want to look at what that does in our body. So that nourishes us. Our blood is what nourishes every one of our cells. It keeps us alive. It's our life force in so many ways. And so that, when we look at the spiritual aspects of that, it's our life force and our connection to our own sense of feeling alive and living the life we've always dreamed of living, whether we are denying ourselves that or whether we feel that we are sacrificing our sense of being alive for somebody else's benefit. But that also relates to that chakra system. And I like to look at both. So the chakra system is something that most people think of as being quite woo-woo, and although I don't like the word woo-woo because, you know, really it's not a word, it's a weird sound, but it is still something that is very ancient. It's actually been around for a couple of thousand years. So it's something that has morphed over time, but there are reasons why it's there. And anyone who can see the energy in color can see this chakra system throughout the body. So that can be reinforced by those who are able to see that stuff. Not everyone sees things in color. Not everyone sees with their internal eyes. So it is one of those things that we can't ignore. It gives us a lot of information. And so our blood is a part of two of our systems, two of our chakra systems. So two of our chakra points. It's our root chakra or base chakra. So the red at the bottom, and you can see on the chart there. So the red is our root or base chakra, which runs from the base of our spine down to the sole of our feet. It includes all of our legs, but it also includes our blood, and it can include our skeletal system as well, depending on whether it's the right circumstances for it to be in there. It also includes our immune system, which I find fascinating with cancer as well, because of course it's our immune system that's really the thing that's struggling. With cancer, we look at the tumour as something that's the disease, and the tumour is not so much the disease. It's actually that something's gone wrong in the immune system before the tumour began. That's really where we need to be doing the work and supporting there, because if we support the bit that came before the tumour, then the tumour won't need to be there in it at all. So then we are able to deal with it. It will go. So that when we're looking at something like the blood cancer or bone marrow cancer, we're looking at that first chakra. Blood also passes through the heart and is a part of our heart chakra. So it is something that is across two areas. And what we want to do is start to look at the meanings around those chakras and how they might relate to us specifically. So in this example, the meaning around that root chakra is the how we relate to our family, how we relate to our tribe. Have we held resentment towards our family? Have we felt isolated or rejected by our tribe? Are we afraid of being different and being ourselves? Are we harboring hatred towards a member of our family or how we were brought up? Are we at odds with that in our lives? Are we holding that and chewing on that? Or perhaps looking more at the aspect of the heart chakra and how that might relate. Are we holding grief? Are we holding ourselves back from love at that point? Are we not allowing ourselves to receive the love of our family, for instance? Or are we not giving love to our family or holding at arm's length the acceptance of our own tribe because we're not accepting ourselves? So see how you can start to unpack that. But what is important is what specifically it means to you. So it is about what those things, what resonates with you when you explore it and you meditate on it. You start to unpack that stuff and not just sit in it, but start to really go through what those fears mean to you. Start to really go through what it is that you've been holding on to and why, and the deeper fear behind that. Are you holding those fears because you actually believe that we are not all one? Are you holding the fear that you are that you need to control your children and that you need to make sure your children go in a certain way in their life and make certain choices? Are you holding on to them so tightly because you're afraid of making choices in your own life? But more than that, because you actually think that your children are separate to you, because you actually think they could ever be separate to you, when in truth, none of us are separate from each other. We are all aspects of the one mind. We are all aspects of each other, of the one consciousness. And that is the stuff you need to get into if this is your journey, going that deep. Cancer is this opportunity to go this deep. It is the opportunity to really, really live in the present moment with your family. It is the opportunity to seize the day with your life. It is absolutely the opportunity to not eat all the donuts, but perhaps support yourself to feel like you are all the donuts, to feel like you are the most amazing thing on the planet, to allow yourself to feel that on the inside as well as on the outside, and to really relish every single second you have on this planet in this lifetime. This is your opportunity, and it is offering you this. Don't hate it. Try not to fear it. Don't be angry at it. Be mindful of the fears that come up because they show you where you need to do the work. Be mindful of where they come up. Perhaps start a journal, write them down and go, okay, when I'm feeling a little calmer, perhaps tomorrow I will go through these and I will work on these fears and I will see where I can clear them. And there are a number of different ways that you can clear fear and you can step through to the other side. And we can talk about that in another live. But there is a lot of things that can be done to clear that fear. So I invite you to feel free to ask me lots of questions. I've noticed there's quite a lot of you live. Thank you so much for watching me live today. I've really loved having you here. And I got all excited with my video. So this topic is huge. And I hope that you found this very helpful. And hi, Leah. Hi, Michaela, and hi, Karen. So lovely to see you again. And it's so nice that you've joined me live today because I think this is one of the topics that affects so many of us. So the more people that can see this video, the more people who can be helped by this, the better, because there is so much fear around this topic, and that does not help any of us. The more fear each one of us has, particularly I invite you when someone tells you that they have cancer to not go immediately into fear or sadness for them, because it is an opportunity. It is something that is hard to do because it is our natural response. But I have to say, when we say to people that, you know, I have cancer or my mum has cancer, or, you know, when we say that to people, the responses we get are mind-bogglingly horrible. And people only say, really, you know, they try and say the right thing. They really do. And they're only saying their first natural response, which is generally, you know, we put our foot in our mouth often when we first respond to something we don't know how to even comprehend, or what we would do in that situation, or that perhaps scares the hell out of us. But I invite you to try and hold them in love and support them with the opportunity that they've been given to reevaluate every aspect of their life out of a place of love, and to hold them in love and hold them with support and allow them the freedom to be who they need to be as they go through this journey, because it will be a life-changing journey however it works out for them. So I invite you to say whatever it is that comes to mind for you, but to try and bring it through from that place of love for what they are experiencing, because it is an incredible opportunity. Yes, it is a very difficult time for many people, and there are a lot of difficult, scary things that can happen through the process of going through cancer. But it is still an opportunity to be gifted time with your family that you value. We have so much time we do not value. We allow minutes, days, weeks, months, years to slip away without really being present with our loved ones. And so to have the gift of knowledge that our days are not actually endless, and to be able to spend them with those we love, with intention and with presence, is a powerful gift in itself. But we also have that gift to explore our whole life, every aspect of it in great detail, and to rebuild ourselves from the cells up into the rest of our lives and make it absolutely glorious. Thank you so much for joining me today. Feel free to post questions. I will answer them in the comments. And I hope that you have found this helpful. I really do. And I respect every single one of you that is going through a journey with cancer. And I look forward to continuing this conversation. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. Bye now.